We all saw the video. We witnessed a 1-year-old baby being forcibly yanked from the arms of his mother. And on top of that, the NYPD added insult to injury when they decided to charge the mother with child endangerment. I was devastated when I saw the video and outraged about the steps that were taken. We all stood on the steps of City Hall and demanded her immediate release from Rikers Island and that charges be dropped. That all happened. But what are we doing to prevent that from happening again? Today we are introducing a package of bills to help create a respectful and supportive environment for families who visit HRA offices across the city. Intro 1335 will require HRA centers to have social workers on staff. Intro 1337 will require HRA offices have adequate space for children of all ages. And Intro 1336 will require and ensure staff and contracted staff are trained on de-escalation tactics and trauma-informed care. I'll be finished in a second. I believe these bills will address the level of disrespect, demoralizing, and demeaning treatment within HRA offices and get to the heart of how people are treated, which is truly working in the spirit of Dr. King's legacy.
Thank you.
Thank you, members of this body, for listening, and I ask that everyone support these package of bills. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and certainly stand in support with you. Councilmember Adams, followed by Councilmember Barron, followed by Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. I echo every single word that was just spoken by my colleague, Ampry Samuel. After the disturbing treatment of Jasmine at an HRA office in December, I am very proud to introduce Intro 1333 with Councilmember Levin. This bill will require the HRA to issue a quarterly report on any use of force incidents that occur within an HRA office. After the unfortunate escalation in the case of Jasmine Kennedy and so many others, we must take steps to ensure that this never happens again. The goings-on inside of HRA offices in the name of law and order are in desperate, overdue need of reform. Vulnerable New Yorkers, a young working mother in this case, go to HRA offices for help and should not have to second guess how they will be treated. This bill, this package of bills, they are necessary steps to improve accountability and transparency. This agency must improve their policies and protocols to prevent future trauma from meeting families in need. So I ask, we ask, and encourage and thank our colleagues in advance for signing on to this important piece of legislation, this important package of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barron, Councilmember Gibson, followed by Councilmember Levin.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. In 1962, Dr. Martin Luther King was labeled by the FBI as the most dangerous man in America. In 1967, following his pronouncement against the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, that targeted criticism of Dr. Martin Luther King expanded to include critique by national organizations, civil rights groups, and he was ostracized, ridiculed, and condemned, and in his words, felt betrayed by many contemporary civil rights leaders, including some within his own inner circle, and black and white clergy for his criticism of the president who had signed the civil rights legislation. Today, with hindsight, those who engage in the battle for social justice and civil rights and people of goodwill see clearly that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was a man of commitment, conviction, and courage. He was a visionary who thought about matters beyond the immediacy of his initial advocacy and dared to venture beyond the local and national injustices of the day and to speak out against the evil tentacles, of militarism perpetrated by the United States and that claim the lives of innocent people in foreign lands. Now, let's see if my technology is going to help me out here. Okay. Dr. Martin Luther King has a speech. One of his favorite quotes is the one that was cited earlier. But this past Monday, we celebrated what would have been his 90th birthday. And he had a speech in which he made reference to living to be 90. You may be 38 years old, as I happen to be, and one day some great opportunity stands before you and calls you to stand up for some great principle, some great issue, some great cause. And you refuse to do it because you are afraid. You refuse to do it because you want to live longer. You're afraid you'll lose your job, or you're afraid you'll be criticized, or that you'll lose your popularity, or afraid somebody will stab you or shoot you or bomb your house. Well, you may go on and live until you're 90, but you're just as dead at 38 as you would be at 90. And the cessation of breathing in your life is but the belated announcement of an earlier death of the spirit. And I just want to announce and commend my husband, Assemblymember Charles Barron, who received the Heroism Award of Dr. Martin Luther King by the Baptist Convention of Ministers. Thank you.
Thank you. You are a forever educator, and congratulations.
And that's to you, Trust.
Councilmember Gibson, followed by Councilmember Levin, followed by Councilmember Powers.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader, and good afternoon once again to all of my colleagues. And I too want to echo many of the sentiments expressed by all of our colleagues in celebrating the life, the legacy, and the labor of love of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who would have been 90 years old. They may have killed the dreamer from the physical presence, but truly his dream lives on. And I think we all collectively as elected officials, I want to quote our wonderful
del Brexit son... El país está absolutamente dividido.
25.2. To ensure that every New Yorker has access to resources and programs to live truly a quality of life. And although it sounds easy and it may look good from our perspective, but truly we face those challenges every day. And I too want to call my colleagues' attention to the package of legislation that's being introed today related to the social services that we provide to New Yorkers in need. And I want to thank Councilmember Steve Levin, because when that horrible incident happened last month to Jasmine Headley, we were all outraged. And Councilmember Levin took a very leadership opportunity to stand up and speak out on something that affected far too many people. As an African American, as a woman, certainly we all sympathize with Jasmine. But we all know that there are many other Jasmines in this city. They just have a different name. But they look just like Jasmine and just like myself. And so I am proud to join this collective of colleagues here. I have introed Intro 1350, which is a bill that would require the Commissioner of Social Services to implement the actual recommendations and to address all of the complaints as required under a local law in relation to the implementation of a plan based on its findings of the audit of the department as to how we treat clients that come into our job centers and our SNAP centers. This bill would require the Commissioner of Social Services to make every effort to ensure that reasonable standards are provided, and I ask all of my colleagues to please add their name to Intro 1350. Thank you, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Gibson. We'll now hear from Councilmember Levin, followed by Councilmember Powers, followed by Councilmember Cabrera.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. I just want to acknowledge all of my colleagues that have helped put together this package of legislation in response to last month's incident at the HRA Center involving Jasmine Headley. That incident happened right before the holidays. We committed to making sure that we were going to address this through legislation and oversight, and we are doing just that. So I want to thank Councilmembers Gibson, Embry Samuel, you, Majority Leader Cumbo, Councilmember Helen Rosenthal, Councilmember Adrian Adams, Councilmember our Chair, Donovan Richards, Councilmember Chaim Deutsch, as well as our Speaker, obviously, and the entire legislative staff for putting together a very significant package of bills. We're talking about 17 bills here to be heard early next month. We're examining this issue in earnest, as is our responsibility to every New Yorker that interacts with the HRA system to ensure that they are getting the services that they are entitled to, that they're being treated fairly, that they're being treated equitably, and that we are providing the services that people need here in New York City. And so I want to thank my colleagues for standing up with such virtue and seriousness of purpose to make sure that we're doing everything we can to be responsible in this instance and in the future. Secondly, I just want to also call my colleagues' attention to Intro 1354, which I'm introducing today, which is regarding the use of psychiatric medication to youth in foster care, which I think is very prevalent, but we don't have a clear picture of, so please consider sending out to Intro 1358. And lastly, I just want to acknowledge the passing of Jonas Mikas yesterday at age 96. Jonas founded Film Culture and Anthology Film Archives on the corner in Councilmember Rivera's district on 2nd and 2nd, which are New York establishments and a real part of New York City culture and the arts. He was a real giant of New York City culture, and he'll be sadly missed, but a life well lived.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Levin, and thank you so much for your leadership in putting together this strong package of bills. I want to call on now Councilmember Powers, Cabrera, and finally Councilmember NYCHA.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I was just remiss earlier to not say thank yous to two other groups in the Water Side deal. And one is my predecessor, Dan Garodnick, who I think is or was watching, who actually kickstarted the conversation. I'm very grateful for his leadership. And also to the HPD, who really worked very hard. They deserve the thank you. I want to make sure they received it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Powers. And now we'll hear from Councilmember Cabrera.
Thank you so much. Today I'm introducing one bill and 4 resolutions that would discourage tobacco use, support civic engagement, discourage false reporting of incidents for hate crime purposes, and eliminate an undue burden on home buyers on modest means. Intro 1345 closes the flavored tobacco loophole. Current law prohibits sale of tobacco flavors that are attracted to use, such as fruit flavors, but allows the sale of wintergreen and menthol flavors. This bill will prohibit sale of wintergreen flavored tobacco, making it illegal the sale of all tobacco flavors in New York to discourage tobacco consumption. Resolutions 719 and 720 call on the state and federal governments to make Election Day a state holiday and a federal holiday respectively, to allow more people working, parents, and others to get to the polls and vote. Resolution 717 calls on the state and the governor to pass and sign legislation that would eliminate the mortgage recording tax, which is imposed on New Yorkers who need to borrow money to purchase a home. Those with the ability to pay cash for property avoid paying the tax. This tax is unfair This tax is unfair to people of modest means and needs to be eliminated. Then Resolution 718 calls on the state and the governor to pass and sign Senate Bill 9149, the 911 Anti-Discrimination Act, which would add first, second, and third degree false reporting to the list of charges eligible for hate crimes sentencing. I encourage everyone to join me and sign on to these measures as co-sponsors. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Councilmember NYCHA, who will close us out.
All right, here we are. Thank you, colleagues. I'm ready. Census 2020. My hermana and I have a big task ahead of us. Carlina Rivera and I are going to be really joining with all of you to ensure that we get this right. No one knows our neighborhoods better than us. The census is more than just a simple count of persons. It determines the very identity of our city. Whatever the census says about us will be interpreted as the reality of our needs for the next decade. And if we don't get this count right, thousands of people will fail to get food and healthcare, education, and housing that they are entitled to. And we as people will fail to get the adequate representation in Congress to fight policies we cannot enact on our own. The possibility of a citizenship question on the census only underscores the urgency of getting this count right, as well as the need to ensure our immigrant communities are counted. In 2015, New York State received $53 billion for programs, and this accounted for approximately a third of the state spending on Medicaid, Section 8 housing, Title I grants, highway planning and construction, SNAP. In effect, every person that fills out the census, New York State has allocated about 2,000 to 3,000. critical welfare. And all of you members are going to be part of this because you know your districts more than anything. And I'm thinking about participatory budgeting where we had 100,000 in the last 2 years vote. We can make this happen because we've been thinking about this and connecting intimately with our communities at every corner. And I know that there's a new census commissioner, but all we have to do is think about NYC rollout, close Rikers, and fair fares. This administration can screw things up. Not screw this up. This is a priority for us at the City Council, and I'm determined with our chair and the speaker to make this right. Are you with me? Colleagues, are you with me? Are you with us? Okay, si se puede. Thank you.
Thank you for the call and response. We may take that to the steps of City Hall in the future. And we will now have closing remarks by Speaker Corey Johnson.
The stated meeting of January 24th, 2019 is hereby adjourned. Thank you, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Councilmember Mark Traeger, Chair of the Education Committee. I wish everyone a very happy New Year. Thank you for joining us today as we vote on the Student Transportation Oversight Package, or it's acronym called STOP, including proposed introduction number 89C, sponsored by Councilmember Andy King, proposed introduction number 45B, sponsored by Councilmember Daniel Drum, proposed introduction number 926B, sponsored by the Speaker, Councilmember Corey Johnson. Proposed introduction number 929B, sponsored by Councilmember Joseph Borelli. Proposed introduction number 1099A, and proposed introduction 1148B, sponsored by Councilmember Ben Kalos. Proposed introduction number 1173B, which I am proud to sponsor, and resolution number 540, sponsored by Councilmember Diana I'd like to recognize the members of the committee who are here: Councilmember Barron, Councilmember Kalos, Councilmember George, Councilmember Salamanca, Councilmember Rose, Councilmember Jerome, Councilmember Cohen. The department's Councilmember Credenchik, that's right, and Councilmember Rodriguez. The Department of Education's Office of Pupil Transportation is responsible for the busing services of nearly 150,000 New York City students, children, students with disabilities, and those who are medically fragile. For too long, we have heard reports of problems and mismanagement at OPT. Earlier this school year, OPT's failure to provide students with safe, secure, and reliable school busing services by excessive delays and no-shows in September, and by a storm in November that led to children stranded on buses for hours on end and without department protocols in place to ensure those students had access to essentials like bathrooms or water. On top of that, DOE's lack of communication with parents and failure to hold school bus vendors accountable has been unconscionable. I commend those at the DOE who have recognized that it is high time for change in our city's school bus services. I'd like to thank my colleagues for working with me to ensure students on school buses will not go without oversight any longer. We are introducing our school bus industry to the 21st century. It is fascinating to me that GPS devices have been around for quite some time, but they've never actually been required to be turned on and operationalized on school buses all this time. That ends today, and with the mayor's signature as well. Today we're voting on the following legislation, which comprises the student transportation oversight package. Proposed introduction 89C, sponsored by Councilmember King, which would require DOE to report twice a year on the number of school bus routes scheduled to take less than an hour, between 1 and 2 hours, and over 2 hours, and the average length of time scheduled for school bus routes in each school district. This bill would also require DOE to share the actual start and end time of each school bus route each day with the council twice a year. Proposed introduction 451B, sponsored by Councilmember Drum, which would require the DOE to distribute a school bus ridership guide in hard copy and electronically no later than 15 days before the start of each school year to all students and parents. Such ridership guide shall include a description of eligibility for school bus services and what the services entail, as well as information for parents and students living in temporary housing and students in foster care. Proposed introduction 926B, sponsored by the Speaker, would require DOE to share with parents and post on its website how parents can file a complaint about a school bus employee, the process by which the department investigates such a complaint, and the possible results of such an investigation. Proposed introduction 929B, sponsored by Councilmember Borelli, would require DOE to report twice a year on all of the calls received from parents and guardians about school bus services, the complaints received from parents and guardians about school bus services, the investigations DOE opened into school bus employees, the number of those investigations that were substantiated, and a description of outcomes taken by DOE in the event of a substantiated investigation. Proposed introduction 1099A, sponsored by Councilmember Kalos, of which I am a proud co-sponsor, would require each school bus used to transport students pursuant to a contract with the DOE to be equipped with a two-way radio or other communication device allowing communication with the operator of the school bus. This bill would also require each bus used to transport students pursuant to a contract with the DOE to be equipped with a GPS tracking device. Yes, welcome to the 21st century. And would require authorized parents and guardians to have access to the real-time location of their child's school bus whenever it is in use. Proposed introduction 1148B, sponsored by Councilmember Kalos, would require the DOE to report twice a year on how school bus routes are determined, and a list of school bus vendors who have completed a dry run of their route as required by their contract. The bill would also require the DOE to share with parents and guardians before the start of the school year their child's bus route, including the vendor assigned to such route, and to let parents know daily if their child's bus is late arriving or departing school. My bill, proposed introduction 1173B, would require the DOE to report twice a year on the department's school bus services, including the vendors providing school bus transportation to others, to students. It's important that my colleagues understand that we contract with certain bus companies, but those bus companies contract with a number of vendors. And there's been a lack of transparency historically about all the vendors that they subcontract with. That also ends today. The number of vehicles in route and transportation sites in use, the number of students using school bus transportation, including the type of students, the number of students in foster care who applied for transportation service, the school bus transportation services provided to pre-kindergarten students, and the categories of students who are eligible for DOE transportation services. The bill would also require DOE to report twice a year on school bus delays with the council and post on the department's website the number of school bus delays and no-shows disaggregated by vendor. Finally, Resolution 540, sponsored by Councilmember Ayala, calls on DOE to provide more extensive training for bus drivers who transport students with disabilities. These important pieces of legislation will bring much needed oversight to our city's school bus services. And I'd like to just say for the record, I think this is probably the most comprehensive package of legislation overseeing the student transportation system I've ever. This will bring probably unprecedented transparency and accountability to an area of the DOE that historically has really lacked transparency and accountability. that will be ending soon. I'd like to thank the Education Committee staff who worked really, really hard on the package of legislation. Even during the holiday break up to New Year's, they were negotiating with the admin. I really want to thank them all. I want to thank Beth Gold, Jen Atwell, Kulima Johnson, Hoffman, Caitlin O'Hagan. I want to thank my staff, Anna Scaife, Vanessa Ogle, and Eric Feinberg. And I'll now turn over to some of my colleagues to speak about their legislation, beginning with Councilmember Ben Kalis.
Good morning, I'm Councilmember Ben Kalos. You can tweet me at Ben Kalos. I want to thank all of the parents, advocates, and members of the media who are here and watching online. I want to thank our speaker, Corey Johnson, and of course our chair, Mark Traeger, for leading the Student Transportation Oversight Package, the STOP package. And I want to thank members of the City Council staff, Andrea Vasquez, who, as mentioned, was negotiating this on New Year's Eve, as well as Ala Masawai, who was doing the data to prove why this is important. And it reflects a lot of effort and expertise from the council and our allies and members of the community. I'd also like to thank the co-sponsor of Introduction 1099, Councilmember Chaim Deutsch, who started working on this back in the year 2000 when he was a staffer for then council member Mike Nelson, focusing on just having two-way radios. And now, again, we are in a new century. We can actually just have the GPS on these. This was originally drafted by then Education Committee Council Laura Popa, and has been updated for today with the help of our current Committee Council, Beth Goller, and with feedback from our brothers and sisters at ATU and Teamsters, who are supportive, and with legal support and advice from the law offices of Regina Steiner. Today we're here to vote on two pieces of legislation aimed at preventing the annual school nightmares.
Like I
At
said,
the start of
behind his
every
back
school year,
when
New York
he's
City
not here to
students are
defend
stuck on
himself
buses
and to
for
spread lies and
hours,
rumors. I would never
leaving parents
justify
worrying about where their children
for
are.
anyone
Parents could
that
rest
did
assured
anything
of
wrong
their
to
child's
anyone,
location if they could simply
even if it was
track
me
it.
who made a
As
mistake.
reported by
I
the New
don't
York
have a
Times,
problem
the annual
admitting
bus
to my
nightmares reached
mistakes.
crisis levels
But I
in
dare
November
for you
when Winter Storm
to
Avery
come up
left
with
young children
lies and
who received
deception
special education on a bus
to
in the
cover
snow
up what you
for more
had
than
to say,
10
dear.
hours. They didn't
Stop
get
texting
home
me with
until the
nonsense.
next day.
We've had this
These bills will take
conversation, and
lessons
we
from
can have
Boston,
this
where parents get bus
conversation
routes weeks ahead of the
face to
school year in
face,
time to challenge bus
like
routes
two
and look trouble.
adults,
And from New York City Chancellor,
instead of,
home city of Houston.
and we can record it at that. But for you to be texting me back and forth instead of talking to me face to face and able to talk to me in person, right? Don't text me nonsense and repeating the same nonsense you've been repeating whenever you feel that you cannot get what you want. You're playing around with people's lives as though you can. So don't do that. Mind your goddamn business. Stop texting me stupidness. Don't text me. Yes, don't text. There are more important things to get done in life than to be stuck with the same old people doing the same ignorant stuff and nothing getting done. Don't text me. That's what I tell folks. We can talk face to face. Talk the reality.
They don't want to talk the reality. I'm not talking about the city council. I'm talking about somebody else. And I'm like, don't even bother calling me or texting me. I don't have time for people ignorance.
Bus companies, we met with some vendors, we met with labor, we met with a variety of stakeholders. We listened, we had a hearing.
Want to talk
Speaker came
ignorance.
to our hearing,
Don't
listened
talk
as
to
well,
me.
spoke
I
for-
don't have time to waste.
We worked together on, I think, a really powerful, comprehensive set of legislation. And we're now passing laws to make sure and to really follow up to ensure that doesn't happen again, to the extent that it's possible. And so I want to thank all of my colleagues for their work, because many of you fielded those calls from parents and frustrated families in your districts.
And you stop talking about my childhood
This is
as though it's an open invitation to talk about. And you should be glad that I told you about my childhood. To protect your childhood. You have a lot of nerves to bring up my childhood. And for somebody who's very insensitive, that you have the audacity to even bring up my childhood when I shared it with you before you can really understand what it was, I dare you to disrespect me. You're the worst of the worst. That's another reason why I cannot believe anything that you say in reference to what you claim. So be careful in what you're saying. I can repeat every single thing that I've told every single person on this planet Earth before every one of my accusers of anything, because I can tell the truth without lying. Can you?
It's so nice to know that we.
So be careful when you're talking to me.
With Speaker Johnson, the chairman,
and be careful when you want to make up things
very seriously, making
to cover your ass.
Safer and more efficient, and not only when we are hit by the snow, by the 365 days a year. That's our responsibility, and this package of bills show.
While you're burning somebody else's ass.
Make the life of our students safer.
Because that's the type of person you are. You don't care who you run over.
I vote aye. Congratulations to all of my colleagues, and I ask to be added to all of this very significant legislation. Thank you.
Cohen. Permission to explain my vote? Sure.
I don't have to look for lies.
I don't want to hurt my arm patting us on the back, but I'm very impressed about the turnaround of this, that we have a thoughtful, comprehensive package. I think in an area that's really needed updating and reform. And that we
I don't have to look for lies to cover up what I say, because what I say out of my mouth is exactly what happened, and I can repeat it hundreds of times, the exact same thing of what happened. Why do I need to lie and cover up for somebody?
Sure.
I don't cover up for no one.
I want to say thank you. Prior to joining this council, I had no idea what it took to get things passed.
They did something critical like that, yeah, that needs to be reported.
Chair of Education and all the bill sponsors, I want to thank you. Parents.
Okay, so the date has changed. This is January the 8th, when we were on the 24th, so we're gonna end this now. Besides, someone called me. I'm gonna see who called. Usually it's irrelevant.
Safety of our children a priority, and in this quick turnaround, makes me very proud to be
Permission to explain my vote. Sure. So as a first.
Okay, how do we end this now?
I'm proud of this package of bills, and as a parent of 5 children, I know how it feels when you lose sight of a child, even for a few seconds. So I just want to touch upon Intro 1099A, which I'm a prime sponsor on that bill that requires two-way communication and a check-in system.
Let's see.